Welcome to Progressive Retail. I'm your host, Cory Mosley. As always, thanks for tuning in. Today, we're talking coaching. And I thought, who better to have join me today than my Vice President of Training and Coaching, Lenny Satisky. You might also recognize Lenny as the inspiration for the Don't Be Ridiculous segment on the show. Lenny is coming to us live from our studio in Richmond, Virginia. Lenny, good to see you.
Good morning, Cory. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. So, you work closely with our retailers, specifically BDC and internet managers, as well as the reps. I know you're coaching probably 40 to 50 individuals a month across our client base. So let's talk about what you find to be the 5 most important coaching tips for a BDC manager with their team.
So there's a little difference. As a sales manager, you're a bit of an administrator. You're sort of watching, you're critiquing afterwards and getting involved almost after the play and after the deal is done. In this situation, you're really involved in the conversation. You're dealing with a less talented group of salespeople, $12 to $15 an hour employees, and they need to learn on the job. They need to be taught by example. Someone needs to lead them, show them what to do, get involved in the call while the call is happening, and use it as a teaching experience with these people so they can start to mimic what you do. It's almost like a player coach in sports.
Okay, so next is metrics, goals, results, and adjustments. Now, just saying, this sounds more like 4 items than just item number 2, though. But talk to our viewers a little more about how this all works together.
So when I say that, what I mean is metrics as a whole and how that plays into where you set your goals, how you view results, and how you make adjustments with your teams. So the first thing you need to understand is what is a logical goal metric for your team in the categories that matter to you most, meaning setting appointments, showing appointments, and converting them to deals. We have to have some idea of where we're going to set those goals. Being in and out of dealerships on a regular basis, I've heard everything from 50, 50, 50 because that sounds good, to we should be setting 80% of the leads when 30% of them may be bad information. So that's not even a reasonable number. So as you start to back into the percentages you're looking for, you need to know what it takes in set percentage, where I need to be, what's the national average, and what am I doing to exceed that, and what's expected of me in converting that to showroom and actually cashing that check in deals. Now, that's the goal setting portion of this. We're then going to analyze that at different portions of the month or at the end of the month, certainly, and then try to make adjustments both as a team and as individuals. So we need to understand what affects those set percentages. That semantics, message technique, and things to create engagement are what are critical in terms of getting people to the phone to set the appointments and then creating the experience. Are we using tie downs to get the show percentage? And where do I make adjustments here? Is the breakdown in the handoff? So metrics are a very serious evaluation. How you look at them, how you dig into them, and you're probably going to need some help from some type of format that you're going to use, again, looking for consistency. So for me, I call it a PCP check. It's a process check procedure, and it evaluates not just the numbers, but what was done to get to those numbers, listening to the phone calls, looking at process in the CRM, looking at timing, looking at semantics, looking at intensity, where we're going with the process that created those numbers so I can make the adjustments to get the results that I'm looking for.
Okay, no, I mean, those are excellent points, but let's talk about number 3 now, because number 3 is a big one in terms of getting everybody on the same page. That's script and process reinforcement. This includes kind of the conversation that you were just having about the PCP check also. Talk to us about this.
So there's the script and process reinforcement. For instance, our company uses a virtual tool to really reinforce early and get people into the psychology. But anyone that's ever done any selling or any type of work on the phone or working with customers knows that as human beings, we get off the page. We start to cut corners, we take shortcuts. So as a BDC manager working with the group, we want a group exercise in times. So we want to consistently reinforce portions of the script and semantics that we're using to make sure that people are on the page. Again, PCP check. This is another area where we're checking performance on a regular basis to make sure those messages aren't falling off script, to make sure we're baiting that hook properly, to make sure that the things that we know need to be said every time are being said every time. So this can get somewhat redundant. As a BDC manager, we want to make sure that we have everybody in the group involved, full participation, and make it fun. Throw some Swift money out there. Make an event out of it. You're going to spend an hour in the morning, stop at Dunkin' Donuts, get some coffee and donuts. Make a little lunch in the room over it. Try to create some group interest in having these events so there can be better attention to what you're doing. This is essential to the consistency of what you're doing. Constant reinforcement of this is the only way we get better. If you remember Allen Iverson's famous comments about it's only practice, I'll show up for the games. If you listen to a guy like Tom Brady, you play the way you practice. If they can't role play this script properly, they can't do it with a customer properly. So this constant reinforcement becomes key to performance. Use it as a team building exercise as well.
You know, that's one of those things that I love to talk about, and we talk about this a lot, is, you know, this idea that people in training don't want to do role playing, or, oh, no, I can't, I don't do well in front of my peers or in front of the classroom. I need to be, you know, out there with the customer training on the job. I mean, what do you, I mean, I know your opinion, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, listen, that's an out because you're afraid for the room to hear exactly how you sound. In the room where everybody's on the phone and the manager may be busy and 1,000 things are happening in the dealership, you can hide in the corner and really not sound too good unless somebody's reviewing phone calls. You're doing a role play in front of the whole group, everybody's listening. So now you're on stage. Listen, this is what this business is about. If you don't enjoy being on stage and showing off your skills, you maybe made some vocational errors along the way.
Now, for number 4, you have one-on-one coach. Now, how is this different from the number 1 thing you talked about, which was the real-time coach?
Well, there's a lot of areas, and there's things we can rehearse as a group, but there's things that hold people back individually, whether they struggle with certain semantics, whether they don't really get the philosophy that maybe they're nodding their head in a group, whether there's personal elements to their life that are holding them back from performing the way they need to perform. Of course, we've seen it all over the country. We were just in a group meeting a few weeks ago where one of the girls that we like looked like she had taken drugs to come to the meeting because she couldn't keep her head up. And the reason was she's working a second job till 3 in the morning and then coming to work at 9 to make 100 phone calls to customers. So if you're the manager of that department, one of your goals has to be to get her to a performance level where she can give up that second job. That second job is going to hurt her performance with all of your customers. So it not only affects her, it affects you and your department if she's a keeper. So there's things individually that you have to deal with in any scenario, but certainly when we're talking about $12 to $15 an hour employees. There's just situations, whether it's single mother, whether it's living situations, whether it's bill paying, whether it's legal problems. So you almost have to be a little bit of a therapist with this team, and it becomes very important that you take an interest in them. Their performance is critical to be tied to you as a leader. So you have to show leadership skills in terms of having an interest in your team, their welfare as people, their progression as professionals, and their continued success as individuals as well. It's important. When they feel you have that interest, they'll run through a brick wall for you. So in order to accomplish that, there has to be one-on-one time. You've got to get to the crux issues that may be holding performance back, and that's not always done well in group setting.
Okay. Finally, you have culture coach. Now, culture is a big one that I think many people miss because we typically just think about the job function in a BDC or an internet department. You know, making calls, appointments, sending text messages, and really just trying to drive business. But a good culture or a bad one can obviously make the difference between a record performance and a lackluster one. Talk to the audience about the impact of culture coaching at a dealership.
So again, this is not an easy business. And if anybody thinks it's easy to come in and make 100 calls a day to automobile prospects, they're wrong. It's grinding. It can get very monotonous. People can get rude, aggressive, abrasive. So, look, I'll make those 100 calls if I have to keep my job. What frame of mind am I making them in? And it becomes up to the director or manager of that department to try to keep things as positive as possible. This is not easy to do in our industry because we are very performance driven. But you have to balance that some with the mood and atmosphere in your room. Some group functions, some things that you do in terms of group outings once in a while, holiday events, showing appreciation for your team, trying to get some scheduling accommodations to make things easier for people in certain situations, rewarding them for outstanding performance. These are things that have to be done because this can be a very monotonous job. And if you do it monotonously with no emotion, no feeling, no real desire, the results are going to show that. So we have to create an atmosphere with these people of respect, caring, consideration, and positive mentality to keep them up during these 100 calls a day.
Well, Lenny, I have to tell you, this was great information you shared with our audience today. I know that there was something, though, that you wanted to remind everyone of, right?
So I just want to tell you, as you make these decisions, don't be ridiculous in what you do with your BDC teams.
Well, there it is. Lenny Satisky, Vice President of Training and Coaching for this little company you might have heard of, Mosley Automotive. Thanks again, Lenny. I'll see you real soon.
Thanks, Cory. Have a great day.
Well, that's our show for today, and another Progressive Retail is in the bag. I want to thank Lenny Satisky again for joining us, and I want to thank you, the viewer. I invite you to go online to mosleyautomotive.com so you can see all of the things that we're doing to help dealers become more progressive and profitable. This has been another edition of Progressive Retail, exclusively on the CBT Automotive Network. I'm Cory Mosley, and I'll see you next week.